Albert knows what I'm talking about. Something knows what I'm talking about. What I thought was interesting about Evelyn Lee's is that she drove a very exotic car, one I'd never heard about, and I thought, when I first saw it, I said, this car is going nowhere. I don't know why she parks in front of the school. It's embarrassing. Of course, I had a 54 Chevrolet Bel Air at the time, which I could barely get running, but that woman had the nerve to park that car in front of the school. That car was a Mercedes-Benz. So I guess I misread that one a little bit. But we moved over to the Santa Monica School by the freeway. Oh, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. At that time in the La Cienega School, there were 3 instructors who were coming down there. One was Mr. Sullivan, one was Dave Hebler, and the other one was Sterling Peacock. They were all brown belts. Now at that time, there were only 3 belts. There was the white belt, the brown belt, and the black belt. And as I said, Mr. Park was the only black belt. I was a white belt, and I guess I got 1 tip in January, my first tip, which would be an orange belt. And the one thing you didn't do is you never wore anybody else's belt. It was almost sacrilegious. You didn't do it. Now I'm going to confess something today that I haven't confessed in 50 years. I had to buy a lot of gis because they were always torn. We didn't have the real heavy canvas gis back then. We had these cheap gis that after 3 or 4 washings, if someone grabbed it, it was finished. It's true. And the pant legs were... And with every one of those gis, you got a white belt. And of course, if I already had one, I don't need more. So I went down and I bought a thing of Ritz dye. Brown Ritz dye. And unbeknownst to anybody else, I dyed my belt, my white belt, brown. And I'm going to confess tonight that I did actually try it on. Before I was a brown belt at home in the privacy of my own house. But then I thought I would be struck dead and someone had seen me and I was going to be in real serious trouble because you didn't do that. Ed Parker used to leave his gis sometimes in the back, and when we would walk by his jacket, we would take the sleeve of his gi top and we would jump it up like it's hit in the face. It had mystical power. Well, Chuck Sullivan walked in one night. He was a brown belt. He was coming to teach. Now, if anybody knows Chuck Sullivan, well, let me give you the demonstration. Who is this? Several of you know here, Mr. Dick knows, right away. It's Joe Himes. That's how Joe moves, always has. He moved that way 30 years ago. If you have a dinner reservation with Joe Himes, you make it at 8 o'clock and you pick him up at 6. Because you're going to keep looking. Come on, Joe, let's go. Not Chuck. Yeah, right? He's lively. And that's the way he came in that night, stepping high. And he had a black belt and a gi under his arm. And I thought, Parker's with him. It's wonderful. Right? Parker's going to teach tonight. Next thing I knew, he jumps out on the floor with a black belt on. He said, line up. And my immediate thought was, I'm sorry I'm here to see this because we're going to all get in trouble. Chuck Sullivan had a great sense of humor. He's a barber and knew every joke. And I said, this isn't funny. Because we're all here in this, we're all part of this, and when this gets out, it went, well, the reason I felt that way because I thought it was absolutely impossible to get a black belt. It was just off the radar. So Chuck Sullivan was the first black belt in the system, and I was there, I guess, only a week after, so you got it. And I was absolutely amazed that anybody could get a black belt. There's Chuck Sullivan. Now let me mention something that means a lot to me. Genshin Funakoshi said that the ultimate aim of karate was not who won or lost, but the development of character. Chuck Sullivan is a man of character. And those who know him know that. I'm going to tell you a few things about him. This man, to my knowledge, before he retired, he's not even retired. That's not a good word for him. He went to work every day of his life, to my knowledge. And I think Janine will tell you. He went when he was sick. He told me that, Janine, recently when you said you learned that from him. You remember. He worked hard every single day of his life at the same shop he went to take care of his kids and his family. Every single day he worked hard. The only other man I knew who did that was my father. That's character. That is character. He married the same woman for a long time, over 60 years. Chuck? A lot. 60 years. That is character. Lived in the same house. I think you've only owned 2 or 3 houses in your whole lifetime, but 2. He's lived in the same house for all of these years. That's a man of character. It's a man of stability. It's a man of his word. It's a hard-working man. It's all of the things that make for character. He's probably, in my opinion, not probably, I mean, he is in my opinion, but probably in many others, the best role model that we have in Kenpo. Certainly one of the top. And he's a man of character. I've known Chuck Sullivan now for almost 50 years. And you know, Chuck, we never had an argument, ever. I've never had a disagreement with Chuck Sullivan, ever, in 50 years. I can't say that about anybody else. And I'm not the easiest person to get along with, those who know me. You know? And there's a lady sitting over there that will definitely tell you that's the truth. But Chuck Sullivan, I have never heard anyone say anything other than positive things about this man. He's loved by everybody. He is a man of character, and I feel absolutely blessed to have had him as a friend for all of these years. I want to thank you, Chuck. Now, I'm finished, but I have to please ask Mr. White. I know he's a little bit off the moment, but Mr. White, we got something. He received something at the last minute. Just when I came by to pick him up to come down, that he'd like to take a moment and read. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you.